Welcome to Stars Matter in the Until Saturday feed. I'm Mitch Light, joined by Ari Wasserman. Ari's a national college football reporter, although you're not a national college football reporter. You're a national college football podcaster who writes every once in a while. Ari Wasserman,
Yeah.
we did miss you last week. You weren't part of the discussion. We finally heard what Grace and Manny's voices sounded like for more than 10 to 15 snippets, but we are very glad you're back. How you doing, buddy?
Well, I'm happy to be back, and I'm going to let you guys know right now, Grace is going to cook on this episode. I'm just going to let her cook.
Okay. Well, and joined, as always, by Grace Rayner, national college football reporter and a recruiting writer for us. Grace Rayner leaves the Clemson beat, and the program goes to, you know what? Coincidence? I'm not sure, Grace, but welcome. Glad you're here. I know you're glad to see Ari's face.
I know. I have missed you, Ari. I feel like I haven't seen you in so long.
Yeah, neither was my wife. So just
All right.
It's just we've been on the road quite a bit this past month, but I'm happy to be back. And the good news about having the 4-man weave on the Stars Matter feed is that the show must go on. So
yes,
Manny's at a doctor's appointment. Sorry, go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, I was going to say I did not introduce Manny Navarro. Manny could not be here today. Manny will be back next week. A little bum Manny's not here because he was actually in Orlando watching Florida State. We're going to talk a lot about that. We'll get to all that in a minute, but be sure to follow the podcast on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. Drop us a 5-star review and leave us a question with your review, and we'll answer on the show. Subscribe to Until Saturday on YouTube. Be sure to join us live every Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday on YouTube throughout the season as we preview and react to the weekend's games and hear from you, the listeners, on our Sunday Sound Off stream. Leave a voicemail or text on the Until Saturday phone line at 316-462-9852. Sign up for the Until Saturday newsletter where you'll get your daily fix of college football news right in your inbox. And Ari, we were talking earlier today. It's only been 1 week, but I know you're having a good time with that sound off hearing from fans. Mostly, I guess people probably mostly call when they're not happy, right? Are there any euphoric calls, or are they just pissed?
Yeah, the first one that we did on Sunday was a euphoric call of a Colorado fan who had to drive to Hooters at 9 a.m. to watch the game. And then he was so excited he had to watch it in his car, and then we had a Keith Jackson impression. I really, really like it. Shout out to Cam Molina, our producer, for coming up with the idea and making that an essential piece of the show because, with everything in podcasting world, you want to have a relationship with the people who listen to you, they hear us coming through their speakers in the car all the time, and we get their questions and concerns and comments, and sometimes they're not so nice, but we get them. Suggestions about, how we can make the show better. So the fact that we can make the Until Saturday feed feel more inclusive and, I don't know if reliant is the right word, but I would use reliant on, the people who support the show is really important to me. And the fact that people have been able to participate and willing to give us their voice to put on the show has meant a lot to me. And I hope that it continues.
Yeah, it's a fun segment. So we got a good show today. Not a ton of movement on the recruiting trail this past week, but we're going to take a deep dive into roster construction. It's one of our favorite subjects. It's obviously recruiting is a big part of roster construction. Small sample size, but there were some very loud results over the weekend by some programs that have taken very different approaches to building their roster. We will, of course, talk about the recent commitments. We're going to touch on a prominent program that is off to a slow start on the recruiting trail, and we will have trivia. Before we start, I want to talk a note from David Ubbins' story. Well, I got to be more specific. One of David Ubbins' many, many stories on Colorado. This was on Travis Hunter, and we talked about Travis Hunter's recruitment a lot on this podcast, and rightfully so. The number one player in the class of 2022. Florida State fans were very upset when he flipped, and rightfully so. And I don't think anyone really blamed Mike Norvell and staff at that point because they lost him to Deion. But with this more information in this nugget, I just found it hilarious and fascinating. David writes, Florida State sent its entire coaching staff to the 2021 7A state title game in Georgia, where Hunter led Collins Hill to the school's first championship as a two-way star, playing cornerback on defense and receiver on offense. Meanwhile, Sanders and his staff at Jackson State never set foot on Collins Hill's campus outside of Atlanta to recruit Hunter. I mean, what the F are you supposed to do if you're Florida State? Ari, you start. I mean, Not much to say except just
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the entire dynamic of that recruitment was that the only person that could have flipped him from Florida State was Dion, and he's going to play for Dion and, kind of be the person who took that first step. And, not to scoop myself, but when we're done with this podcast recording it today, and we'll be live, hopefully by the time you guys are listening to the show, I'm writing a column about, Colorado and the fact that they have some proof of concept now that it actually could be great to play there rather than just playing for somebody who is a superstar and entertaining. And Travis Hunter had to be the first person to take that step. And I would say that it's a blind step. And, that information that you just shared and Dave reported on was, kind of part of the process of like, well, I could go to the bigger budget place and go to a place that has won championships in the last decade and been a part of something that is trying to get reestablished, but isn't, low budget by any stretch of the imagination. Or I can take a leap of faith, go play for Deion Sanders at Jackson State and try to make something, of my path that's different from the typical. And I think that he always wanted to be different. So, I think that whatever went into recruiting him, obviously the Deion factor was the main point. And I don't know that that was a traditional recruitment in the sense of how many coaches do you send to the game or how many times do you go to the school. And, frankly speaking, I'm not even an expert on what Jackson State's financial, limitations might be for the recruit. Like, I don't even know if they could have sent their whole staff there if they wanted to. So,
right. Good point.
That to me is an interesting thought too. Deion could have gone, but the fact that Deion has been able to, or did convince the number one overall player in the country to come play for him, isn't surprising. And I'm not surprised at all by that whole notion. So this is an interesting decision to start the podcast on this, because I think we're going to get a little bit into Florida State and stuff, but it just as a reminder that we all saw Travis Hunter, who I believe is probably a top 5 player in college football, maybe even number 1 for his versatility and the amount of plays he can play. But man, that recruitment right there is probably the beginning of this whole thing.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in luck in sports. Like, I think people who just, depending on what sport you like, if it's baseball, the ball, say it's a game of inches, and if it's, 2 feet one way in an infielder, like a soft line drive or whatever, in football, just the way the ball bounces, I think fans, sometimes or coaches don't want to believe there's luck. I think it's bad luck. There's luck in recruiting. It's bad luck for Florida State that the year they had the number 1 player committed, Deion just happened to be at Jackson State. So, we'll get into more about that. And this is a recruiting podcast, and we are going to transition into roster construction, but we got to start with this, Grace. It's a Clemson program that you covered closely for 4, 5, 6 years. You still follow them closely. How, just from a football standpoint, how surprised were you by what you saw Sunday night or Monday night?
I think it makes no sense, honestly. And maybe I'm naive to think that, but I just felt like regardless of what we were going to see Monday night, I thought there was no way they would come out and have basically the exact same offense as they did last year with Garrett Riley and a new quarterback. And so now I think we have to rethink everything we thought about the 2022 season. And was it DJ Uiagalelei? Was it Brandon Streeter? I don't know. And Dabo's been saying a lot that, this is the Clemson offense, and Garrett came in to run the Clemson offense. And so maybe we shouldn't have been surprised, but holy smokes, I cannot fathom how they just picked up right where they left off after so much offseason hype.
And Grace and I were slacking about this during the game. It's just like, obviously they wanted to come out and play well and make, just because it's their first game, but it's like that to me, and they'll say they don't care about outside impressions, but when you change your coordinator and you're in your first game like that, you want to come out and put your best foot forward and say, we are a changed football team. And also there's people listening, and if a Clemson fan would say, you know what, we fumbled twice inside the 7 and on first down, we missed an extra point. Okay, or we missed a short field goal. Okay, let's say you score all 3 of those and the game goes differently and you win 24-20. I still don't think Clemson's fixed by any stretch, Ari. Like, they still couldn't get receivers wide open. This did not, even if they did not turn the ball over and miss field goals, it did not look like an offense that's taken the next step. And all credit to Duke. Duke has received its credit this week as a fast offense, a fast defense, hard hitting. But I just came away just shocked by the lack of playmaking options at Clemson.
Yeah. This is going to be a nice segue into the actual discussion point,
take us there.
I have said on the podcast, whether it's this one or with Andy on the Andy Staples show, and that existed, was that Clemson was headed in the wrong direction and that it would have a hard time maintaining its status as a team that could compete for a national championship every year.
Why did you ever say this? I've never heard this line of art.
So yeah, but I've said it a lot, and I got a lot of
too.
hate. I've written it, I've said it, and people like really didn't like to hear it. And I'm not sitting here because I'm gloating. The thing that I want to make the point of is that I didn't think it would be like this. Like when I said that they were headed in the wrong direction, I meant that they weren't going to be built like Georgia and Bama every single year. I didn't think it would be they can't score on Duke. Like that to me is a further decline than I would have anticipated. And granted, we have to take into account that they made 5 trips to the red zone. And there was a lot of grab ass in that game. A lot of, turnovers inside the 10-yard line. They certainly could have won that game if they just didn't turn the ball over. So I don't want to act like, their brand new offense was just a complete failure because they only scored 7 points when they reasonably could have scored.
But the goal isn't just the goal
20s.
is to be good enough to win at a high level to make the playoff. The goal isn't just to beat Duke on the road and score just enough points.
Sure. And speaking of which, they did not score. So whatever the reason is, they didn't score. And the only time they did score was off of a muff punt, which I believe their possession started inside the 20 or around the 20-yard line. So, that to me is an interesting dynamic. And it's like Garrett Riley is viewed as one of the best young offensive minds in college football. Obviously his relation to Lincoln Riley probably helps the viewpoint a little bit. Not that he isn't his own man, but, people have seen what Lincoln Riley has done for offensive football in the last 5 years. And there is a certain connection to that. And I don't know what's going on at Clemson. I don't cover the team. I'm not there every day, but I find it shocking that he would want to take that job if he doesn't have control. Or if he thought he had control and he doesn't, then it's probably a miserable existence for him. So that's not the segue. The segue is, we've talked about it a lot on Stars Matter, and we've talked about it on other shows. Dabo Sweeney's decision-making when it comes to participation in the transfer portal is an unforgivable thought process to me. It has been last year. It didn't take, people are just catching up now. I've been saying this for 2 years about, you got to play the game. You got to adapt. You got to be able to do this and participate in this. And Grace, you can help me out here. Before I continue cooking, I'm going to let you into the kitchen a little bit. What is it that Dabo Sweeney is against? Explain that to me. Why doesn't he like transfers? Because they're quitters at their other place? What's his thought on this?
I think I don't know. I mean, I think he just really, truly believes in the high school process, and he's gone viral for what I think have been pretty laughable, for lack of a better term, comments about the portal is in my locker room. And I think the thing that's got to be the most frustrating if you're a Clemson fan is that he doesn't need an entire new roster of transfers. You need a solid wide receiver and an offensive lineman, and maybe that's it, honestly, on offense. Just someone who can stretch the field vertically and help out Cade Klubnik, and someone who can help along the offensive line. You don't need 15 or 20 transfers. He just needs a few. But I don't know. And I don't know if this is the reset that he'll need to reevaluate that stance, or if he's just going to dig his heels further. But it's been, I don't know. It's been a little bit surreal to watch, honestly, just to see it all happening in real time.
Well, Alabama's the model, right? I mean, if you don't, they haven't Nick Saban doesn't love the transfer portal, but he doesn't, he's not against, he's plugged some holes. He plugged a left tackle
played in the
last year.
national championship game with the same exact scenario that Clemson has right now, which is we need a receiver. They went and got one. Jamison Williams came in and almost was a Heisman contender, and they probably would have won the game if he didn't blow his knee out in the national title game. And I'm going through the list here of available transfer receivers just in the offseason. And I'm looking here, and I see, of course, Keon Coleman is going to be the number one example of this because he is on Florida State's roster and scored 3 touchdowns on Monday, and Florida State looks awesome. But he's not the only one. A.D. Mitchell went to Texas. Dante Thornton went to Tennessee. Dorian Singer, who was going to score a lot of touchdowns this year, is at USC. Jamichael Sturdivant at UCLA. Dante Cephas, who I think he scored in the Penn State game. If he didn't, he's going to score touchdowns. There's just Jordan Hudson went to SMU. There's just so many different examples of JoJo Earl at TCU. I'm looking at it right now. It's just Jimmy Horn to Colorado. it's just insane to me that they weren't involved in any of these recruitments or trying to do it. And like, listen, there is the unspoken thing with Dabo, and Grace, I need you to check me if I'm wrong, okay? But he has been outwardly critical of the entire notion that his players should be paid, okay? And I think that there is a certain, and I know that he's okay with NIL, but like the idea of compensating athletes, he's not the parade leader on let's compensate the players. I think that's a fair thing to say. He said at one point that if they ever got paid from the colleges, he would quit coaching. And there is a certain notion that in the transfer portal that you have a bunch of kids who are on the take, or people who are wanting to be in a situation where they're compensated more than or more fairly than they are at their previous stop. But there's also a secondary notion, which is if a player leaves a program and they didn't get in trouble or weren't dismissed from the team, that they are quitting on their brothers, or that they are not dedicated to the cause that they committed to out of high school, and thus makes them some sort of less bought-in player that isn't good for a locker room. And I certainly could probably get on that board if you're one of these coaches that says, I'm not building my entire roster out of it. That said, isn't he doing a disservice to the Clemson football team, the players that he loves, the guys that he recruited out of high school, by not doing everything he can as the CEO of that program in order to situate them with a roster that puts them in a position to be who we expect them to be? Because now they don't have those transfers on the roster, so those cancers or whatever, is said internally aren't ruining the. But they lost to Duke because they didn't have somebody to throw the ball to. And I don't even want to talk about the developmental stuff. Like, wasn't Bo Collins a top 15 player nationally?
Williams
like,
yeah,
they have players on their
yeah.
team. So there's one issue of they didn't develop the guys that came into their program as highly recruited wide receivers. Because if you go back and you look at Clemson's past, I mean, Justin Ross, Sammy Watkins, who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting T. Higgins. Yeah, there's a million of them. And now they're not developing their players. And then when they don't develop their players, they are not willing to engage in the sport in the way that everybody else is engaging in, which is going to leave them with gaping holes in the roster, while other teams who would have had gaping holes in the roster in the past that would only be able to be fixed through the normal recruitment process can plug and play immediately. So my notion of Dabo Sweeney, and this is my thought, is if you are not going to play the game with everybody else, then you are no longer fit to be Clemson's coach. Like, I think it's that simple. And like, that is like and I'm sure Cam's going to clip that and it's going to go all over YouTube or whatever, or Twitter. And like, he probably should, but like, if you don't do everything in your power as the head coach of Clemson football to make the best possible team for the players on your team, your fans, and your university, then you're not doing your job as the head coach.
And this is, go ahead, Grace.
I just like, oh my gosh, this is Ari fired Dabo Sweeney week 1.
Yeah.
No, not fire him, but he needs to adapt, or he's not.
I agree.
The one trait that they always say that Nick Saban's great at. What's the number one thing that everybody always says that Nick Saban's good at?
He's elite at adapting.
And Grace, comment after this, and it's not like he's at a place where you can't take transfers. Stanford's not going to take a lot of transfers. The high academic schools, they're not going to take a ton of transfers. That's not Clemson can obviously they're going to get kids in. So yeah, great. So again, it's a program you've been around. Do you think it's just I think it's more development. These are my guys. I sat in their living room. I told their parents that they're going to come in and have an opportunity to develop. I don't want to bring in a guy that's going to bump them from that spot. I think it's more of that. I don't know, Grace, you just take it from there.
I think that's part of it. I remember a couple of years ago, this was before they changed the rule where you could play immediately, and then before the transfer portal got so as big as it is now. But I do vividly remember sitting in a press conference one time and him saying that he would not bring a one-off into his program, like via the graduate transfer route. So I think that's part of it. I think, to your point, Ari, part of it is, these are my guys, these are the ones that we're going to develop. I think a lot of it is just stubbornness. Dabo has, been very outspoken, and I think he wants to show that there's a path. This is just my opinion, a path forward with his way. But there's totally a path where even if he wants to protect his locker room, even if you feel like you don't want to bring in someone from wherever, go get an FCS guy. Go get South Carolina did that. Juice Wells, and he lit people up last year. Like if you're worried about the culture, whatever, go get an FCS guy who maxed out at his last place and everyone's happy to see take the next step and go get an opportunity at the biggest stage. So I don't know, but it's going to be fascinating to see if he amends this at some point.
And there have been times in the past too where I have scoffed at the notion of culture and all those things. And I want to say that like I am 100% on board with the fact that you want your players to love each other. You want the coaches to feel personal responsibility. You want your players to earn everything that they get. And then when they get it, they feel like they earned it by doing things the right way. Like, I think that what Dabo stands for in like a vacuum makes sense. Like, I think that a lot of times he says things that don't make sense, but if you really try to like sit back and understand where he's coming from, like he's not crazy.
His motives, I think, are always
I think that
pure.
That said, I think that we're looking at a team that just lost to Duke. So what's that doing for your culture? Where's your culture now? Like, do you have a great culture? Or would you have had a better culture if Keon Coleman was on your team and you won? Like, that to me is like, what's the best thing for culture? Everybody having a good time and everybody winning. And it's just your responsibility as Clemson's head coach is to win football games. And I know that there's, development of young men, kids getting their diplomas, and all the things that make you feel nice and fuzzy inside when you're watching a documentary. And I know that those things are important. And of course, I want men to be better than they were when they got to a place. Of course. Nobody gives a shit about any of that except winning and losing. People who are listening to our podcast right now don't care how awesome they are at academics, or how, like, if a player on the team has a 3.8 instead of a 3.4. They don't. We don't write about it. Why don't we write about it? There's no academic writer at the
Athletic. We don't know.
You want to know
we
why?
Know they're great.
Because no one cares.
Great. Ari, that's your new job.
I know
it
makes you queasy. I know it makes you queasy, Mitch, because you're Mr. Academia. Everybody, I'm not sure you knew this, but Mitch went to Vanderbilt. Okay.
Shut up.
And I'm not saying, like, don't take that as me saying that education is not important. Of course it is. I want everybody to do everything they can to better themselves. We all went to school.
Right. That is assumed that we all
That is assumed, and I don't want it to be like, he thinks. But that isn't what a coach is paid for. It's not. It's great if you can win and have that. And I'm not saying that you bring players in that stink at school or don't care about it, but you need to do everything in your power to meet your university who's cutting your checks. Is Clemson private? They're public, right?
They're public.
So he's a government employee?
I'm sure he's the highest paid person, highest paid government employee in the state of South Carolina.
My thumb is a dot and my index finger's a dot. Let's connect those on our own there, okay? Just you have a responsibility to do something, and he's not doing it if he's not going to participate in the sport the way that it's constructed. You might not like the rules. You might not like the way it is. You have to do it. The same way that, like, at my job, I like writing and podcasting. I don't like 3-hour phone calls with Mitch sometimes, but I have to take them.
3 hours.
You called me twice today.
You know what's
I didn't call you one time. You called me twice.
I missed you a lot when I was on vacation.
I know you
actually
did.
You're like my best friend.
I know.
Listen, I don't know. We're not live, right? You can keep this in the show. I want you to keep it in the show. Okay. But our dryer broke.
Yes. So what you?
Let me tell you something.
Why does everything break in your house? You have a nice house.
I know.
You have new shit. Everything always breaks.
I know. My dishwasher's broken. My garbage disposal's broken. My dryer has broken. Our air conditioning crapped out. The house was built in 2020. I don't know what to do. And I don't know what to do with my hands to fix anything. So anyway, we had somebody come to our house to fix the dryer on Friday. And then when they got here, they said they needed a new part.
So
they had to order the part. And then I said, okay, I'll pay for the part. Just call me ahead of time to reschedule. And then I just got a text, this person will be here any minute. And it's like, nobody rescheduled the appointment. So now I have a psychopath to come into my house to fix my dryer while I'm like, we might have to pause for 30 seconds, if this
or we
happens.
can just carry on without you. But so I have a question.
No.
Is he here?
I don't know. You ask Grace the question while I deal with. My wife is texting me.
Okay. So you're all
podcasting?
Yeah, this is fantastic. So now I have a question for both of you guys, but I can't ask it while you're not listening, Ari. Okay, Grace, I'm going to ask you this question. And Ari, you're sort of listening. This is not about college. Okay, this is not necessarily about college football. But Ari was very vocal on his podcast and on social media with his good friend and our friend David Ubben, who, correct me if I'm wrong, Ari, got Benihana delivered to his hotel room while working after covering a college football game, which I am 100% on Team Ari here. That is psychotic. I mean, I don't know why you would do that. So if you I never get food delivered, whatever, because I don't travel and ride on the road. But what's your go-to meal on a Saturday night if you're in a hotel room and you're gonna get it delivered and you gotta work? Mine was Chipotle. It's gluten-free and it can sit around like in a delivery.
Are the tortillas gluten-free?
No, but I get a bowl. So like I know you're more of the food delivery expert and all that. You used to listen to you and Landis talk about pizzas and having the reserve pizza in the freezer, and so you can rotate them in and all that. But to me, like on a delivery, is that you got to go somewhere?
No, I just unlock my front door from my phone because I'm a
I can do that too now.
I can't.
It's amazing, isn't it?
I can't.
So I just told my wife, text the man that the front door's open and just fix.
What if Ari got attacked on our podcast while we were
Dude, one time I was on Big Ten Network. I never go on TV. It was a live Big Ten Network hit.
I'm scared.
And I was sitting in this seat where I am right now. And in my office on the corner here, there are windows that are floor to ceiling and the front door is right there.
Yeah.
So I was on live hit and I had no idea this person was coming over. My lovely wife hired somebody as an interior designer to like fix our house up. No thought process whatsoever to tell me that this person was coming and had a code to the door. Like, because she didn't think I was going to be home. So I am sitting here on Big Ten Network trying, and you got to keep it strapped in on TV too. It's not like this.
TV. Yeah.
They knock. And I'm like, okay, well, hopefully they'll go away. I don't know what person would be here knocking on my door. If you knock on someone's door cold turkey now, or like not cold turkey, but like out of the blue now,
unannounced,
you're a psychopath. Yeah.
Right.
I'm never knocking on another person's door again that doesn't know I'm coming.
That's not true.
You've done that though, Ari.
Oh, I did it one time for a story, and that was and it went exactly the way that I thought it would. Yeah, I got screamed at and told to leave. And we'll tell that story one day on the pod. But then after they knocked, I didn't know they were coming. They knocked on the door, and then like my front door has a keypad with a code. I don't know if you guys have that.
I do.
The person at the door that I didn't know who it was typed in the code to my house and walked in.
At this point, what percentage chance do you think you were going to die?
I was like on TV.
I would have hung up.
So like I didn't know what to do. I actually like, and here's the thing that's crazy. I thought about this. My doors are always shut in the office, but I saw the person walk and I finished the hit while the unknown person was in my room because I didn't want to like get up and become viral for like local asshole on Big Ten Network gets up because everybody would be like, oh, he shit his pants, like that other one that went viral this weekend. Do you see that one that went viral this weekend? Some podcaster got up abruptly and then they got up. And it's like viral on Instagram right now. It's like millions of views. People think he pooped his pants, and I'm not sure that he did. Maybe somebody broke into his house.
Okay, so
pizza would be my answer. Always pizza.
But it doesn't. See, one thing I like about Chipotle, like if it's late or it takes too long, it doesn't like does pizza if it gets a little cold. I don't like it. But Grace, what about you?
Why would it get cold?
I don't know. Don't trust the delivery guy.
That's fair.
Have you ever heard of the local pizza places in every city called Domino's?
I can't get Domino's. Grace,
they have gluten-free crust now. Actually, Mitch, you can.
I had the best gluten-free pizza of my life in Holland, Michigan over the weekend. By the way,
there you go.
Okay, Grace, answer the question.
Oh, I really like to get like Chinese food delivered when I'm on the road.
All right.
Love that about
if you're in a different city, you don't know where you are. Like you could be kind of shady. You don't know.
Yeah, I'm like door dashing it. I will say in Ubben's maybe defense.
No, there's no defense.
I grew up
no defense.
Like 5 minutes away from a drive-through hibachi place, and it was like $8 in an old Burger King.
Different.
Yeah,
it's different. Best invention ever.
The only reason why Benihana is in existence,
I agree with you,
is for somebody in a white hat to throw shrimp in your mouth. with the hiya ole or whatever they say.
Maybe Ubben hired a chef to come to his hotel room and cook there.
You guys do the next segment. person's here. I'll be right back. Keep going. I'll jump right in. It's time for Grace can cook anyway.
Oy vey.
This is so weird, just staring at Ari's empty room.
As my grandmother would say, oy vey. Okay, we'll go over the recent commitments of the past week. We don't want Ari's thoughts on this anyway. There's 3 notable ones. Braden Platt, number 191 from Yalem, Washington. If I typed that, are you back, Ari? You're back.
That was fast.
Okay, we're going over the recent commits. Then we're going to go back into that roster construction.
Okay.
Braden Platt, number 191, a linebacker from Yalem, Washington, number 3 player in the state. It'd be nice if I wrote down where these kids are going, but I think I remember all of them. So to Oregon, DeAndre Carter, number 103, offensive lineman from Mater Dei in LA, Southern California, is going to
Auburn.
Auburn, yes. And then Dominic McKinley, who defensive lineman, the number 1 player. We'll get into this later. Right? The number 1 player in the state of Louisiana. What do we always say? Kids, they're going to LSU. He's not going to LSU, at least not right now. Texas A&M, good get. Imagine that, Texas A&M getting.
That was a huge get for them. Yeah, they're doing good. Yep.
So okay, let's go back to the reason. All of that has to what we were talking about is recruiting. It's roster construction, but the reason is the 247 Sports Team Talent Composite came out about a week ago, and it's something that we refer to a lot. Ari writes about a lot. It's a great tool. The one thing it is not. It's just as guys as high school recruits. So it's when a guy transfers in, if he was a 3-star, it's going to show up as a 3-star, even though if he's was considered a better get. So Clemson, number 5 in the team talent composite for 2023. Florida State, number 20 in the team talent composite. What's the difference between those schools? One of them has taken a lot of transfers and the other one has not. So we could, 5 years ago, we might look at that and say, okay, that's a pretty accurate indication of how much talent you actually have in your roster. No, it's an accurate indicator of how much recruited talent, so to speak, as recruits. Because Florida State, you couldn't look at those 2 teams this weekend and say that Clemson is 15 spots better in any kind of talent ranking than Florida State.
I'm ready to make Stars Matter history right now. Grace, are you ready?
Ooh.
I legitimately think that a team that ranks number 20 in the talent composite rankings could win the national title this year. I mean, that is to me a real thought. Now,
what if 2021 Ari heard you say that?
No, I'm saying could. I don't think that they're going to. They have an uphill battle the same way Michigan does too.
Can, not will.
I don't think that they'll actually do it. But it's the first time that I would take a team that is ranked in that area as a legitimate contender. And it's kind of the same thing with Michigan too, to a certain extent. I think Florida State is better than Michigan right now, which might be weird to say after one game, but anybody who watched that saw a level of athlete in the way that they were playing that game. I don't know. Sometimes you can just get a sense for whether a team has it or not. The 247 Sport composite rankings don't make sense if a team can cherry pick under-recruited players who outdid their recruiting.
Jared Verse, great example.
So the thing about Stars Matter is that in the old days, meaning 2 years ago, you had a 85-person roster that was made up only of high school recruiting rankings for the most part. Maybe 3 or 4 guys were transfers in, but not like it was now. And basically you played the law of averages with that composite to spit out a team that is likely going to play to a certain level, because if you have 25 stars, it doesn't mean that all 25 stars are going to be good. It just means that you can assume that maybe 8 to 10 will be really good. And if you have 8 to 10 really good 5 stars on your team, then you can assume that that team is going to be loaded. Stars Matter doesn't mean that a player who's a 3-star or a no-star like Jared Verse can turn out to be a really good player one day. It just means that if your team is filled with those types of recruits, that the likelihood of you having a very, very good team from top to bottom are lower. It's simple math. And I just don't understand. People just tweeting at me, also, stars don't matter anymore. Stars will always matter. They will always matter. But if a team like Florida State can go out and pick up 10 to 15 players who were low recruits, who have obviously become better than what they were ranked, which happens on every roster across the board, and cherry pick them and put them onto the field, then obviously that doesn't make any sense because you already got ready-made players whose recruiting rankings don't matter anymore. So that's why it's different. It's not that the 247 Sports composite rankings don't matter anymore. It's because teams are taking in so many transfers that the numbers are being watered down by players who play better than their ranking would indicate. Does that make sense? So like, I don't know in 5 to 10 years if we can look at the 247 Sports composite rankings the same way we look at them now. And I think Florida State's going to be a very interesting case study to follow throughout the year to see how good they actually can be. And I would love to see them on the same field as a really good Alabama or a very good Ohio State or Georgia team to kind of put that to the test. But LSU is a 247 Sport composite monster because of the way that they recruit out of high school, and they sucked the life out of their chest.
Now, I've thought about this, and someone listening, and we've proposed it. Okay, so why, when you're looking at Florida State, when they're doing the team talent, why are they considering Jared Verse a no-star when they could put him a 5-star and add him to the talent? Well, I think the easy answer is the quick answer is because they're not reevaluating the current players on Florida State's roster. So why are they only reevaluating Jared Verse? Like Jordan Travis is a lot better than a 3-star quarterback. He's listed as a 3-star on the team talent. So if they were going to put Verse as a 5-star, they'd have to go back and reevaluate everybody. And we've talked about that. I think you've had mailbag questions. It's just not.
And it's impossible to do because unless you do the evaluations in the middle of a season.
Right.
But it's like they have a Heisman Trophy contender at quarterback and the number 1 top 5 pick at defensive end, and neither of them were blue chip players. It's like, oh, how are they a national championship contender? Because they cherry picked 2 legit players that are going to be NFL guys and maybe on the stage in New York City at the end of the year and plugged them into their team. So, of course, it doesn't matter. Stars mattering has always been a law of averages. It's always been about a total number. Some players will play below their ranking. Some players will play above their ranking. But if you have 85 people, the math will bear out at the end that your team will be more talented and better than the teams that don't have the similar stars. But now, if you're going to have teams like Florida State who are built up with 4 to 5 guys who were 3-star prospects 2 years ago, who now are Heisman finalists, then it completely throws the entire thing out the window. So that's why I think that my stance on the stars hasn't changed. The game has changed.
Makes perfect sense. Going back to Clemson and Duke, I'm sure you guys saw this, but Grace, do you know the blue chip difference between Clemson and Duke's roster?
I do, because you put it in my story. Oh. It's thank you for that, by the way. It's
he always puts things in people's stories.
56-2.
56-2. Yes, Grace seems appreciative of my help, unlike Ari. So
that stat I thought was crazy. Like,
there were certain things that Mitch adds to my stories that really help, and then there's sometimes I just wish he wouldn't have done it.
I was glad he.
You gotta take the good with the bad, Ari.
There's one specifically from the past month that I really wish you would have done.
Okay, let's tell me that off air. Okay, my feelings will get hurt.
You know what it is.
Do I? What story?
Yeah. It was a column that I was really excited about writing.
Okay. Sorry.
I feel like this is about to get sad.
I'm very sad. I don't want to disappoint you, Ari. And then,
I don't think it was your fault, though. I think somebody told you to add it.
Oh, I'm confused now. And sometimes, like I said, you get lucky and give Duke credit for the development of Riley Leonard. But I think Leonard actually, I didn't know this, picked Duke over Vanderbilt. He had no big time offers, and he did not go to Duke. He didn't visit Duke. And is he better than Cade Klubnik? Maybe he is right now. Don't you guys think? So they've got a 5-star quarterback and they've got a low 3-star and he's better. So it's like,
but a low 3-star performing like a first-round pick is not evidence that stars are irrelevant. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing that really irks me because people, I don't know how many times I can talk about it on the show or write about it and it's just like people are never going to get it. Like if you tweet at me, stars don't matter, you're never going to be helped. Like at this point, it's too late for you. It's like no help for you. I feel like I would have, if I took a high school math test right now, I would flunk without question. I'm actually afraid to have to help my daughter with her algebra homework.
Liv's taking algebra already?
I know. I was
No,
going
but
to say, you
saying,
got
like,
like 10 years.
I have nightmares of like rudimentary math homework that could be coming my way in 5 years. Like I won't know how to do any of it. But I do think that it's just a simple understanding of large sample bases, variation based on what could happen with a player, and total numbers added up together and averaged through that spit out a team that is more likely to do it. If you have 35 5-stars on one team and 0 5-stars on the other, and only 11 5-stars are actually good on the other team, you're still 11 5-stars better than the other team, even if they have 5 3-stars that play out of their mind above their ranking. It's just a law of averages. It's simple math, and even I understand it. Get on board or get left behind. If you're not on board, you're left behind. That's it. Stars Matters over.
Okay, not the podcast. The
podcast.
So you said you listened to the podcast last week. I don't know if I believe you, Ari. You're a busy guy. I know you got a lot of podcasts. This was a question from a story that Grace and Manny did, and then I participated on the podcast last week. We're not going to go over it again, but one question: recruiting predictions.
Yeah,
2020 class of 24 recruiting crown: Georgia or the field? Who do you got?
Yeah, I saw this and I heard it because I actually listened, and I don't know why I would lie about that. I had a really hard, like I said, I read the story too. That was in the story, right?
Yeah. Wow. Consumer of content, Ari Wasserman.
Look at you,
yeah,
Ari.
I support my friends and family.
You're a good guy.
Listen, I think Grace is a must read, even if I don't work here. Do the stories you've been pumping out, Grace, have been awesome.
Thank you. Likewise.
You hear those footsteps behind you, Ari? You know what those footsteps are?
No.
Someone finish it for me. What are those footsteps?
The only reason
Someone finish the sentence.
It's
Grace
me running to hang out with you. That's
the reason Ari's
for my job. Let's go.
That's the reason Ari's one step. He pivoted to podcast because he knew he was about to be dethroned.
No.
Yeah, I did what Dabo Sweeney refuses to do, and I adapted.
Now answer the question. Georgia or the
So
field?
you're saying Grace is Florida State and I'm Clemson? Is that what you're saying?
You've won a lot of championships, Ari. It's time to move over.
It's time to move on, yeah. I think I'm still going to take Georgia.
Okay, I took Georgia too. Manny, I love Manny. He's stuck with his hot take Florida State pick.
I don't know where he's getting it. The math doesn't. I don't like. Manny, I hope you're okay at your doctor's appointment. I hope it's one of the above body doctor's appointments and not below body. I don't think that it's mathematically possible for them to do it. Like, I don't know where this is coming from.
Well, I mean, they
guess
could flip.
Decommitments could happen.
Five stars, obviously, but
I know. But if they do,
yeah,
I guess. Yeah, in theory, I guess Margot Robbie and I could go out for a drink next week. But I just don't know. But that's the next thing too, and I don't know if this.
Did you see Barbie, Ari?
I didn't. I didn't have time. I really wanted to. So,
I did.
Yeah, good movie. Go ahead, Ari.
Did you wear pink to the theater?
I did not.
I
don't
not
own
either.
pink. Oh yeah, I don't own pink.
What's
a lot of people did though.
Yeah,
no, a lot of people did, and I don't understand. So my wife is going to a Beyonce concert here next week or something. I think it's next week or 2 weeks, and it's in the Cowboys arena, and the number one stress in our entire life, in our family this weekend, was getting her a metallic outfit that looked cute. I was nervous on Sunday at the mall. I really hope we can find something for her.
I think Zoe has Zoe wore a metallic dress. I can keep it that way.
It's and if you ever met my wife is the type of person, if we're in Utah in the mountains, she has 7 outfits that look like she grew up there. If we're in California,
when in Rome,
she is always dressed. We went to a cowboy wedding last week in the middle of nowhere. I would have thought that she grew up milking cows out there. It was unbelievable. She is a very good chameleon, and it's always super pretty and cute too. That's the thing. She doesn't half-ass it. She goes all the way for it. So if her friends and her friend group are dressing up for the Beyonce concert, she is going to find the nicest, most expensive metallic dress a human being could buy, and she's going to play it up that way, and I love her for it. Because honestly, my number one thing in dating was finding a woman who was well put together. That matters to me, which is hilarious because I wear the same thing every day.
So your admiration, for lack of a better word, of TCU on Saturday did not help with the spending a lot of money on an outfit?
I lost a lot of money on the TCU game, and I lost more money on the TCU game than it will cost her to buy her outfit.
Okay. Okay, good.
Like I
All right.
lost a shit ton of money. Okay. Because I it's called the live genie.
Yeah.
That's what I call it. You chase the dragon.
Yeah.
The game started at 20.5. Then Colorado scored first, and then the spread dropped to 7.5. At that time, I'm like,
That is screaming Ari. That is just Ari, come get me.
hit it. Okay. Then it dropped to 6.5, which is an entire score difference. Hit it. Then it hit 3.5. Hit it. Then under 3, hit it again, and then finally money line. I hit 5 or 6 different bets throughout that entire game. And I lost all of them. It was a sad day. It was a bad day. It's just
It happens.
There's that dude that's on Twitter that always goes, "It's a sad day. It's a bad day." That's
you gotta bounce back.
I didn't this weekend at all. It got worse as the day went on.
Okay. A lot of times we haven't done it lately, but we kind of just take a snapshot of a program during the recruiting cycle and say, like, are we give them praise for what they're doing, or are we concerned? This one is University of Washington, who had a breakthrough year offensively last year. They've got a new home, the Big Ten. There's no uncertainty there. Number 55 in the 247 composite rankings. A lot of that is just 12 commitments. 8 from California, none from in the state. Now, their average player rating is actually higher this year at 88.73 than last year. But there are 5 blue chippers in the state. They're committed to A&M, Oregon, Michigan, and Oregon. The number 2 player in the state is Jason Brown, is uncommitted. The state has 15 guys committed to Power 5 teams. Like I said, none to Washington. Should we be concerned about the University of Washington's recruiting? Grace, you go first.
I would like to see them pick it up a little bit just in volume, but I don't think I'm ready to panic yet. No, I think this offense is going to be so much fun again, and the move to the Big Ten has recruits really pumped. So I'm not concerned, but I would like to see them have more than 12 commits.
12. Ari?
I think I've been in a constant state of panic about Washington's recruiting for like 3 years now. And now they might have the greatest offense since the 2019 LSU Tigers. So what the hell do I know?
You know why?
Michael Penix is a transfer? Yeah, I know.
But their wide receivers are Roma Dunze and McMillan. They're just good old-fashioned recruits. They are. I think Jalen Polk might have been a transfer from Arizona, but a Seattle kid. So, Ari makes fun of me. If you've listened to this pod for years, I have kind of just admiration or affinity for University of Washington. I think it's a real cool place. They've got a great tradition. I think it'd be a great place to play. And they had that great run. I think they had 3 straight classes that ranked number 16 nationally. But outside of that, I just feel they're an under-recruited. They don't recruit as well as they should. They've not done well in state. And it's not just missing on those 5 stars.
What's crazy, guys? And I did this. Was the game on Sunday, the LSU game?
Yes.
On Sunday night, I was watching Florida State completely demolish LSU. And the entire time I was thinking, holy shit, what if Travis Hunter were on this team? Like I do that sometimes, like flips. Maybe that's a good story. Like biggest 2023 what if recruiting results. And I think another one that would be on that list is like, what if Emeka Egbuka was on Washington?
Was on Washington's team.
What if JT Tuimoloau was on Washington right now? And it's like people are talking about how awesome they are, and rightfully so, because they are awesome. But it also is a testament to the importance of actually capitalizing on the players in your state when they are there. Because Washington may win the Pac-12. They may even make the playoff. But like their chances of having a truly spectacular season would be aided dramatically, probably more so because of JT Tuimoloau. They've got great receivers already, but if you add Emeka Egbuka into that mix, like you have 2 potential first-round picks added from your own state to this already awesome team, and you might be having a Florida State discussion. And we're not
going to play the what-if game, though.
So,
I'm playing the what-if game.
Game?
Jimmy Lake's probably still the head coach there, and their offense is they're running the ball, and Michael Penix Jr. is in there. Sam Huard's probably the starting quarterback. That's the ironic part. That the 5-star they got. The 5-star they got. Would he be playing if they didn't get Michael Penix Jr.? Possibly. It might be having a good year. By the way, we're going to get to trivia in a minute, but I do want to say, reach out on Twitter. I got flustered last week in the trivia question because I didn't have Bo Nix, so I started scrambling and for the Texas A&M fans that have reached out, Ari, the question was, if you listen to the entire pod, was how many former five-star quarterbacks were starting in week 1. I did have Connor Wegman from Texas A&M on my list, but did not mention him, so apologize for that.
You have actually, and I love you, bud.
I know I've screwed up a lot in trivia lately.
What's going on with the trivia questions?
I don't know.
I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's like, come on, write it down.
I know. I had it right last week. I got flustered because when I make a mistake on, quote on live the pod, I'm scrambling and so I'm crossing things off.
Do you think that you made a mistake on today's? Because I have a trivia question for you, Grace. What are the odds that Mitch messes up today's trivia question?
No, I think this one's pretty good.
He won't
let her answer.
Thanks, Grace.
Okay.
Should we go trivia? Are we done?
I think we're ready for trivia. Yeah. If you want the story that I have to do to you before 8 p.m., then definitely.
Okay, sounds good. All right, this is one where I don't honestly like, especially earlier in the pod, Ari, when we first started. Most of the trivia questions were like impossible to get. They were just like I'd research something and they would lead to discussion, and I'd say like how many of the top 100 players, and you'd say like 7, and the answer would be like 72, and then we would we would go on from there. So I don't expect you guys to get this one, but I just think it's interesting. From 2014 through 2018, there were 5 quarterbacks who ranked in the top 10 of the recruiting class. So not just 5 stars. There were 5 who ranked in the top 10 of the recruiting class. 3 were drafted. 2 were not. Who were the 2 that weren't drafted? So from 2014 through 2018.
It's always such random years too. I know there's one. I know one off the top of my head.
Who is it?
Wait, I think he made the NFL. I don't know if he.
It doesn't matter. It's drafted.
Did Kyle Allen get drafted?
Did not. Now Kyle Allen has started NFL games, so that's good. And there's one.
So
more.
I got one.
Yes, good job. And the other one, I mean, it's hard for me to know because I researched the question, but like I would have thought you would have got the other one better. He played for 2 separate Power 5 teams. You've probably seen him live, Ari. Grace, you probably have not. I'll give you a little hint. I have seen him live, and Ari has seen him live. So that could give hints on.
I've seen him live. So he's a Big Ten player. Is that what you're saying?
He started in the SEC, ended in the Big Ten.
So he started at Vanderbilt, ended at.
No, remember my job. I saw every team.
That's true.
Yes, I've. He did not play at Ohio State.
Did he make the NFL?
I don't know. He was not. I don't think he played in the NFL.
I have like absolutely no chance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's.
Yeah, I think is he on the Colts? Or was he on the Colts? Is it Jacob Eason?
No, Eason was.
I guess I should have.
Eason was drafted.
I guess I should have taken the clue that I've seen him play, and I've never seen Jacob Eason play.
Right.
So.
I've seen Jacob Eason play, yeah. Eason was a 4th-round pick, I believe.
Top 10 player nationally or top 10 quarterback nationally?
Top 10 player nationally, so like 5-star, but a high 5-star.
Oh, I know who it is.
Who?
Shea Patterson.
Yeah, good job.
Wait,
but he did get drafted in the XFL, didn't he? So you need to like, or yeah, you know.
What was his question again?
Okay, Ari.
Does Hunter Johnson fall into this category?
No.
Why?
Well, hold on.
Hunter Johnson was a top, right?
I might do it. Grace.
Uh-oh.
Grace, you're not supposed to make me look bad.
Uh-oh.
Hold on.
He's class of 2017.
He wasn't top. He was number 30. Okay, Grace, you got me scared. The top 10.
Okay.
Grace, you got me hard.
That's my bad. I'll take that loss.
Well, I nailed it though.
Yeah, good job. And
good job, Marie.
Shea Patterson did get drafted in either the XFL or the USFL though. So next time you need to be more specific on your question. Drafted into the NFL.
I think that
he was the number 1 pick of the USFL.
I think that's assumed.
Okay, well, it's not. I mean,
Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields were 2 of the ones drafted, and Jacob Eason.
One of whom was drafted behind Zach Wilson somehow.
Yeah, and Jacob Eason was a 4th-round pick of was the Colts. Yeah, so cool. Let me check my notes. Anything else, Grace, Ari? No.
I'm good.
So, Ari, is someone in your house now?
There's a human in my house. Yeah.
Are you worried?
No, he was the person that came here last
Okay,
week, so I recognized him.
Okay, what appliance is this guy fixing?
The dryer.
The dryer. What's wrong with the dryer? It just didn't dry?
It just didn't do the only thing. It didn't do the thing that the thing is named after.
That is the ultimate. You had one job.
Can I ask you a question? And I want you to be for real with me.
Yeah.
This is my trivia question.
Okay.
If a dryer is broken,
Yes.
What do you call it?
and the issue isn't that it doesn't dry things properly,
How's it broken?
what other way could it be broken?
Like electrically, if it doesn't like turn on, like that's like the only other
It
thing.
could
That's a
be-
good one. Yeah,
It could dry, but take like quadruple the amount of time, but
our
eventually
electric
get there.
bill was
Okay.
at $9,000 this month because we just had to dry our sheets for 7 straight loads. You know?
So Ari and I joke often about like not being good at things, like not fixing things around the house. You know,
I'm
just
awful at it.
I figured out something in my life that I am better. What is the best thing in your life that you're better than everyone else? Like, I'm not phrasing this question right. Like, what do you do best compared to the rest of the world? Is there something that comes to mind? Like, Ari, is it? I know what mine is, and my wife. You know, we were talking about this up in Michigan while driving around.
Micromanaging our stories. Is that
Mine is parallel parking.
You
I am
are an
a-
elite parallel. parker.
I'm a master parallel parker. Like I can. I'm not saying I'm the best in the world, but relative to all my other
but
skills,
definitely in America, yeah.
yeah, I do that better than. That's my best skill.
You are
relative
very
to
good
everything
at
else.
that.
Thank you, Grace.
And like, do you have a trick?
No, I just growing up in the Northeast and going to like games in like New York, just whatever.
Yeah,
I
and
just
there's
learned
not a
how to
lot of
do
people
it.
who grew up in the Northeast that probably know how to do it too.
Um,
Hey, Grace, what's yours?
I don't know that I have one. I was thinking about this. I don't know.
Grace is so well rounded.
I
I
think
mean,
I'm-
I know, Ari. Running an offense as the point guard. She's like probably the best in the world.
Stop.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, point guard play. Yeah,
Stop.
I'm the most unremarkable human on the face of the earth. I don't think I do anything.
I don't think I do either.
Losing money, I'm pretty good at.
Yeah, or you find something you're good at, you work on your craft, you just keep getting better at it. So that's your homework for next week. Come up with something that you're just
I think I was always really good at hitting on girls.
like good at, successful at it, or
Yeah.
like, okay,
I think I'm witty enough. Look at Britt. I
right.
totally fooled her. She had no idea what was happening. But like the first
Unfortunately,
6
she's
months
caught
of our
on, right?
relationship,
She's caught on
No,
now, but
it's-
there's a legal.
she
issue.
literally looks at me and says, "You tricked me."
So you're saying deceit is your above
Yes.
average skill?
I am very good. I was very good at how I could walk up to girls in public and get their numbers sometimes. Like I don't know if I'm saying this sounds so
Yeah, we get it.
it wasn't that I'm better than anybody else. I think that my lack of fear in that category was great.
That's a skill.
I
That
didn't
confidence?
ever I don't even know if it was confidence. I was always just told, you know how people say you can ask somebody out and if they say no, it's no big deal. And people are terrified of rejection. It didn't even process to me if someone's get away from me. I was just okay, this one didn't work. We'll try on the next one. And believe it or not, it's pretty successful. If you actually meet somebody naturally and say, hey, how are you? Or bring up a conversation or say something funny and make them laugh and ask them to go out, they go out. That's how, think about it. Really, I know we got 2 more minutes left in this podcast, but do you ever wonder how all of our parents met?
I think about this a lot.
Well,
Where
I met
the
my
way that
wife
people
pre-internet.
yeah.
Well, no, I didn't.
So
What year we meet?
you met your wife in a bar pre-internet, right?
Yeah. Well, not
Yeah.
the internet
What'd you do?
existed, but I went up. It was part of it as a group. It was a bar crawl. Boston. Jeff Halfley, love you. Boston College bar crawl. My friend from high school went to Boston College, and Heather's cousin went to Boston College. But there's a big group there, and just started talking. Yeah.
But was
old
she
school.
friends with your friends or was she a random?
She was part of her cousin went to Boston College, so it was same group. But
Did you know somebody there that knew her?
no, didn't know.
Oh, okay. So she was a rando. Good job.
Yeah.
What'd you say? You remember what you said?
Not really.
Did it start with "Hey, babe"?
Yeah, that's exactly. I said, hey, babe. No,
Grace,
I said, would you?
Grace, when you were single and if a man would walk up to you in public and hit on you, would you think that was weird, or would you be perceptive to it if they were charming?
I think it depends on are you interested in them or not, right?
But the fact that it's weird now, like makes it like no hope to just meet somebody. Like that's why so many people meet people on dating apps, because like talking to people in public is just like off-putting. The same way I said, if you ever knock on
agree. Like
someone's door,
I can appreciate like a nice, confident in-person interaction.
how'd you meet Hunt?
Mutual friend.
Yeah,
He was
See, I met
commenting
my
on one of
wife.
her stories. Yeah, just
Was he a commenter on your stories?
He was a commenter on my stories before we met.
Yeah,
I like he
it's
dug
it's an
them up.
athletic romance. Yeah,
It's,
That's unbelievable. I met my wife through a mutual friend too, so maybe it's not as drastic as I think, but
mutual
yeah,
friend I
that
think
or
is the way to go. Then you're not getting someone who's gonna,
yeah.
be crazy.
yeah. So, well, Ari, last week when you weren't around, I had to do the sign off, and it was.
You want to try again? Because you were
No.
always like, the reason why I did it was because you stunk at it.
No, well, I wanted you to feel part of the show because you're so quiet during the show and you don't really talk much. You want to take us away?
Grace, why don't you take us away?
Yeah, yeah. This is it. No, Grace, we are not quitting the show. Ari and I are just going to stay on here until you sign off. So.
I like it when Ari does it because he says it he delivers it so well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Grace. We're going to sit here until you do it.
We're
It's gonna
gonna
be
say,
silent.
what do you say, Ari? You say thanks for listening to Stars Matter, and then that's it.
Cut the pot.
All right, that's it. Thanks for listening.